At this time, I want to introduce Chris Fishpaw from the University of Dayton, so he can share a little bit about what they're doing on his campus.
Hello, everyone. So I'm really glad that you started with that kind of an introduction into how you got into the system. So I actually am going to talk a little bit about how we're using the system day to day now that we're in. So a little bit of history of the University of Dayton. We were founded in 1850. We're a Catholic and Marianist institution. We have about 8,500 undergraduate students, and almost all of them either live on campus or in one of our campus neighborhoods that we manage. So highly residential, highly involved group of students. And when we were evaluating software choices in the last couple of years, we were really looking for something that could meet some of the needs as we were outgrowing our old software vendor. And so we needed additional opportunities for communication with our students and within our division between staff. We needed more flexibility in our event registrations, better attendance tracking. We used to be on a card swipe system, and if you've got 200 people swiping out of an event, it just takes a long time. We needed something really complex and flexible. So my experience in previous softwares is kind of trying to fit the unique needs of the institution into something that's pretty rigid and set. And so we were really looking for a company that could grow with our processes so we could do the best processes for our students and our campus. And we really wanted to break down some silos. So we started a number of years ago with just a student organization management system. And as we continued to work with that, more and more people wanted to be involved. So going into this software, before we even found a vendor, we had worked with our housing and residence life area and our orientation area. And so as we were looking at the needs of the software, we have about 275 recognized student organizations. We're a little unique in that we have a very close relationship with our 275 organizations. They are insured by the institution, all 275 of them. And so what I like to tell them is if you're breathing, we need to know. Meetings, events, on campus, off campus, we need to know all the details, who's there. And so we really needed some flexibility in how we structure our event registrations, how we structure our attendance tracking, but also the approval workflows across campus because there's a lot of people who want their hands in approving events. We have a very robust residential curriculum. So I mentioned that most of our students live in our housing, about 85 to 95% in a given year. And when a current student and an alumni meet, the very first question out of the alumni's mouth is, where do you live? So it's a very important part of our students' identity. And so our residential curriculum, our students attend programs and workshops that are related to the residential outcomes. And they earn points, and those points impact their standing in the housing process. And so we needed something that could manage a university-wide residential curriculum. So the residential folks partner with offices, academic and student development offices to put on all these programs. And then we have a fall orientation model. So we have all 2,300 of our first-year students coming to campus at the exact same time with their parents, and so we needed something that could fulfill all of those needs. So like I mentioned, as we were looking at implementation, we had some formal partnerships. In addition to the 3 offices, our student government uses the software for elections and for communications. So our student government can email the student body or subsets of the student body. And so they needed something that could really help them with communications. We had a number of informal partnerships even before we identified the software start popping up. So again, people who needed event tracking and attendance management and able to really dig into who's attending their events and possibly what they're learning at those events. And so we right away brought in multicultural affairs, our student development staff organization, our international education and campus ministry. And so for me, the big difference between formal and informal partnerships is the formal partnerships are paying members. The informal partnerships are people that we saw as paying members as benefiting us by their being present. So the more students we get in, the better utilization we get as paying members. And so the formal partnerships, we couldn't really do our operations without the software. The informal partnerships, it's really nice for them to have, but they could do it some other way. We also have solved a lot of problems in the software. So before we renovated our ground floor of our union, we had a physical ride board. So there was a map of Ohio and a map of the country, and students could put up different color tags. I want to go here, or I'm going there. And so as that was going away, it was really well utilized, and so we needed an electronic system for that. We have a community college access program, so we have a partnership with a 2-year institution, and so we offer a lot of student activities benefits to students in that partnership, and so we needed a platform for them to engage. And as I mentioned, our division was not communicating well. And so what I'm going to do now is kind of walk through how the software has helped us meet some of these challenges. So the first is really robust surveys and forms, and so what we really appreciate about the surveys and forms is there's a lot of different kinds. So if we want to do a quiz, we can do that. The logic is really robust at this point, so you can hide or show pages and individual questions throughout. And then you can set up the workflow based on how a student answers a question or what kinds of things they're looking for out of the system. And so we're able to route these forms as we need to on campus. And so you can see here, I just logged in yesterday, and I have 3 pending workflows for a financial form. And so what I like is actually, you can see at the top 2, each person in the SGA funding approval needs to approve it before it moves on to the next step. But the third one actually starts at Campus Rec, because it's a Campus Rec group, and so anyone from that first group can approve and it moves on. So it's, again, really flexible. Our housing system. So I said our students go to events and they get points towards their housing, and so we can actually log in right now. We had, so far this year, we've had 5,634 students participate in that program. Our seniors would not have an incentive necessarily to participate in that program, and then students who might be looking at landlord or commuting. But we can see right away, we can just see how many students got points or badges, and then students can log in and see where they're standing as well, and so we really like that. As a program manager, I can log in to see the programs that I've done, how many students attended, and then I can dig down into that data and see demographic information if I want. I can add a post-event survey, which I think I'm going to show you what that looks like later. So if I want to get some reflection or assessment data electronically to tie to those students, I can do that. I typically do paper assessments for completion rates, but we are looking at moving some of those online. You mentioned the app. We actually have 2 orientation apps, one for our students and one for our parents. And so we're able to, for our students, they're able to log in with our single sign-on and get into the app and get some really good information in there for them. And then for our parents, we have more of a public app with a passphrase, and they can log in and see all of the events that they are welcome at. But again, just looking at this parent app, we had over 50 to 60% of our parents download the app this fall as they were going into orientation. And we were able to track all of our events into different tracks so that the parents really had an idea of where they should be at any given time. And those 272 sessions, we were able to upload all those in an Excel file, which was really cool. We didn't have to go in and build every event in the system. I just heard a student last week at an event that was just saying out loud for some reason how much they love the QR code tracking for events. And so each student on their app can either have their QR code, so as staff we can scan the student's individual QR code into an event, or this is an example of a self check-in station, so we can put this on the door as they're coming in or as they're leaving. And they also have a QR code reader on their app, and so they can scan the QR code and we know that they were at the event. And so this has taken a 20 to 40 minute checkout process down to a couple minutes. We actually hired a group of maybe 10 students who attend these events at this point and help us to scan people out. But students know exactly how to do it and they're ready for it. We used to use an API to assign users to different groups, and it was complicated. And so being able to come into this software and just say, hey, we want all the undergraduate students in this group, click this button. And every time an undergraduate student is added to the system, within 24 hours, they're in the group we want them in. You talked about the emails. Here's an example of just some really high-level analytics. So our student government sends out emails occasionally. And to be able to see, if, for example, the second email, that 66% of our students opened that email from the student government, 291 of them clicked on a link from that email. It's really good information for our student government to have, to see how they're balancing that with all their social media and stuff, but also to be able to take back to the administration and say, hey, we talked about this problem, we agreed that we would communicate something back to the student body, and here's how we know that students are getting our message. This is an example of our ride board. So again, I pulled this screen grab a couple of days ago, and you can see that students are using it. And so they're able to post whether they have seats open or whether they're looking to go somewhere. And so this is another example. We just pull students into this when they're on campus, so all of our students are in it, and and we advertise that they can come here to use it. This is an example of a portal. So this is our UD Sinclair Academy, so our partnership with our two-year college, and so they can get all the information here. They're able to look at events specific to them, but by being in the system, they now have access to everything else we're doing. So we really try to get students in the system at their entry point, but then we have a lot of incentives for them to use the system. We need all their information for student clubs and organizations. They use it for their housing curriculum. They're using it in different departments. And so what we found is everyone on campus wants to be on board. All of the college deans are like, we need to get our co-curricular information in here, our internships, our co-ops, our speakers, so that we're collecting all that data in one place on campus. And it's the first time that we've had a vendor where we're able to get enough information in to start running some predictive models for retention and things like that based on student participation and attendance at events, but also based on the kinds of events. So we're tagging these events with different learning outcomes and with different pieces of our curricula, so that we're able to really see where are there impacts that we're making with first-year students, looking at partnering with our academic early alert system to say, here are some students who are not going to class, and look, they're not doing anything outside the classroom, or these students are going to class, but we're not seeing them outside the classroom, and what does that mean for our campus? I liked your visualization of the email a lot better, but this is just an example of how we've structured our divisional email. So instead of people sending out listserv notices every single day or 6 times a day, we have decided as a vision, on Tuesdays you get information and this is what it looks like. And so we've been able to use the software to really pull in all that information, have forms for people to submit information, and the email development tool is really just phenomenal and super easy to use. So again, we've got a lot of data in the system. We've got all of our event registrations, event attendance. We've got student reflections. Right now, we're using some of the tag features. So you can tag anything. An individual user, a member of an organization can get a tag. The events can get tags. So we're using those in individual departments to track what we want to get out of those events. So if I want to pull as a leadership person, all of the students who came to events related to diversity and leadership, I can pull that information and start to look at the reflections from those events and see which students are making progress. They are actually rolling out some new curriculum mapping features, which we're super excited about, so that it can actually automate some of that for us and we can see where students are in their development. And then again, the ease of tracking attendance. We have way better attendance data. I don't think I took a picture of it, but we have something like 180,000 attendance tracking since August this year. So we really have a good idea of where our students are at on campus in a given day. This is just a high, I did. This is a high-level look at some of our dashboards and events. And so in this particular section of the website, we've got 8,300 events this year, 118,000 registrations. You talked about money. We've got 4,646 instances of collecting money. for student organizations, and so that's been really helpful. We can see that most of our usage is from students, but we have about 280 of our faculty staff that are currently using the system. We can look by date at when those events are happening, so kind of seeing this peak in late September, early October, and then as the spring semester came in, we're kind of bumping back up to February. We can see when students are being added to the system and when students are registering for events and things. So we really like the high level as well as the ability to get into the data. I mentioned we can send feedback requests for students. This is a custom form. So if we want to get data from students about their experience or just feedback or about learning reflections, we can have the system automatically send that email one day after the event and choose what form we're doing that through. And so we have found this system to be incredibly flexible from the development side. There's not been a time yet, and I don't want to oversell, but there's not been a time yet where we've called and said we need it to do this, and we haven't gotten that in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And then it's built a lot of collaboration on our campus. So we're collaborating a lot more with academic partners and with our housing office and seeing opportunities for the content in the system to really grow. And we've also had conversations with our IT department about, well, this is the system that's supposed to be the campus system. How is this working with that? But we really like that problem. And so, again, thank you all.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for the session. Thank you very much to our campus partners. We're grateful to have you here and tell everybody all the amazing work you're doing. So enjoy the rest of NASPA, everybody.